at 1-800-ATLANTIS or AtlantisBahamas.com.
Good morning, America. Breaking overnight, President Trump backs down in that State of the Union showdown, now agreeing to delay his speech until the shutdown ends. As we hit day 34, hundreds of thousands of workers prepare to miss another paycheck tomorrow. Protests erupt on Capitol Hill, and now dueling votes to reopen the government set for today in the Senate.
Also this morning, new details on that deadly bank rampage. A 21-year-old now in custody, accused of killing 5 people. Police ramming into this building to stop him. What we're now learning about his past.
War of words. President Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, in a big about face, now refusing to testify before Congress, claiming the president is threatening his family and acting like a mob boss. Cohen's lawyer is here live.
Hollywood bombshell. The director behind the Oscar-nominated Bohemian Rhapsody responds to those explosive allegations in a new article. 4 men accusing him of sexual misconduct when they were teens. What he's saying this morning.
That major storm slamming the south, now hitting the east with dangerous downpours. And the new warning about another deep freeze on the way.
And school bus scare. On the heels of this incident, a child was trapped alone for hours. A 5-year-old left on a freezing school bus for a whole day.
I think I was at school. Well, I was not. I was somewhere else. That's why I was crying.
What the school's saying this morning.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
Good morning, America. Hope you're well this Thursday morning. We want to get right to that breaking news out of Washington. A late-night tweet, President Trump has backed down, agreeing to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's call to postpone the State of the Union until the government shutdown ends.
And the shutdown is now entering day 34, and tomorrow hundreds of thousands of federal workers will miss a second paycheck.
And they're letting their feelings be known about that. Protesting on Capitol Hill, senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce has the latest. And Mary, there's still no end in sight.
Yeah, Robin, 5 weeks into this shutdown, and the two sides are not negotiating. There is no compromise deal on the table. But now this morning, the two sides do agree on one thing. Unless they can agree to reopen the government, the State of the Union as planned is off. Overnight, a sharp reversal from President Trump, giving in to Speaker Pelosi and agreeing to delay his State of the Union, saying it is the Speaker's prerogative and he will do the address when the shutdown is over, tweeting there is no venue that can compete with the history, tradition, and importance of the House chamber. Trump changing his tune just hours after he tried to call Speaker Pelosi's bluff and refused to put off the speech.
I think that's a great blotch on the incredible country that we all love. It's a great, great, horrible mark.
But Pelosi said the president was not welcome until the shutdown is over. Day 34, and 800,000 federal workers are now poised to miss their second paycheck.
We want to work. We need a paycheck.
Hundreds of fed-up furloughed workers clogging the halls of the Capitol.
It is rough. All I want to do is just go back to work so I can pay my bills.
Protesters arrested outside the office of Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell. Meanwhile, the president's daughter-in-law offered this consolation in an interview with Bold TV to furloughed workers struggling to make ends meet.
It is a little bit of pain, but it's going to be for the future of our country, and their children and their grandchildren and generations after them will thank them for their sacrifice right now.
Now, adding to the calls to end this shutdown, 5 former Homeland Security secretaries, including the president's former chief of staff, John Kelly. In a letter, they are urging President Trump and members of Congress to fund the department, saying that these employees help secure the nation and shouldn't have to rely on charity, saying, quote, this is unconscionable.
It truly is. And we know the Senate is set to vote on dueling bills today.
Yeah, Robin, later this afternoon, they will bring up these 2 competing plans. One is the president's proposed compromise that would fund his border wall. The other one is the Democrats' plan to temporarily reopen the government that does not fund the president's wall. But, Robin, both plans are expected to fail.
All right, Mary, thank you. Michael?
All right, thank you, Robin. And now to those new details about that deadly rampage at a Florida bank. A 21-year-old is in custody this morning, accused of killing 5 people, then calling police to tell them what he'd done. Our chief national affairs correspondent, Tom Yamas, is there in Sebring, Florida, this morning with the latest. Good morning, Tom.
Michael, good morning to you. Eyewitnesses are telling us about the chilling moments just before the shooting, about coming to this bank, finding the front doors locked, looking inside and seeing the gunman walking over his victims, and then hearing the gunshots. This morning, police say this is the man behind the massacre, 21-year-old Stefan Zaver.
This is an individual that needs to face very swift and exacting justice.
Watch as a SWAT team in Central Florida rams right into this SunTrust bank, moving in on a gunman they say just shot and killed 5 people inside.
They got him.
Moments later, officers walking out with the alleged shooter who was wearing a t-shirt, shorts, and sneakers. Police say it was the gunman himself who called 911, announcing, "I have shot 5 people."
Our friend works there. She could have been shot. I can imagine what her husband's going through right now.
Eyewitnesses who say they were outside of the bank at the time of the shooting tell ABC News the doors were locked, and inside, the shooter had put everyone on the ground. Police say they responded within 3 minutes of the shooter's 911 call, setting up a perimeter and bringing in negotiators. But when the talks with the gunman went nowhere, the SWAT team was told to move in. And inside, police finding 5 victims. The shooting, killing, and takedown rocking this Florida town. Relatives of the victims gathered at a local hotel, forced to wait hours for confirmation, many learning their loved ones were gone.
Today's been a tragic day in our community. We've suffered a significant loss at the hands of a senseless criminal doing a senseless crime.
While police haven't announced a motive, overnight officers were at his house collecting evidence. This neighbor says she was at the alleged gunman's home just hours before the shooting.
I have been over there on barbecues with my daughter. We've grilled out together. We've eaten together. No, nothing at all. Not even a tiny, teeny little bit would it have even remotely have crossed my mind at all.
Now, the alleged shooter has been charged with 5 counts of premeditated homicide murder. He is expected in court later today. Florida now dealing with yet another mass shooting, George, as we approach the 1-year anniversary of the Parkland shooting where 17 people lost their lives. A local headline summing up that shooting and this one, senseless. George?
Does sum it up. Okay, Tom, thanks very much. We're going to get the latest now from President Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, pulling back from public testimony to Congress, citing public threats from President Trump and his lawyer. Our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, is in Washington with the story. Good morning, Pierre.
George, good morning. At this moment, Michael Cohen's testimony before Congress is in limbo as his war of words with President Trump escalates. This morning, despite Michael Cohen's desire not to appear in front of Congress, House Democrats are vowing he will testify, even if they have to subpoena him.
We will get the testimony as sure as night becomes day and day becomes night.
Cohen says he's afraid to testify because the president is threatening his family with statements like this to Fox News.
He should give information maybe on his father-in-law, because that's the one that people want to look at, because where does that money? That's the money in the family.
Cohen has been expressing concern about Trump attacking his family since being sentenced to prison for a number of crimes. Here's what he told our George Stephanopoulos last month in an exclusive interview.
I took responsibility for my actions, and instead of him taking responsibility for his actions, what does he do? He attacks my family.
The president later suggested in a tweet that the FBI had turned Cohen into a rat. Democrats are suggesting that the president is coming very close to witness tampering. But President Trump says he's simply defending himself against a convicted liar who's telling more lies to investigators to get less prison time.
No, I would say he's been threatened by the truth. He's only been threatened by the truth.
The former attorney and client now enemies, with Cohen facing pressure from Democrats in Congress to testify, who say they won't take no for an answer, George.
Okay, thanks, Pierre. We're joined now by Michael Cohen's attorney, Lanny Davis. Lanny, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, George.
We just heard the president in Pierre's piece, and the president's allies are saying that the real reason Michael Cohen backed out is fear of tough questions from House Republicans. Your response?
The last thing that Michael Cohen fears are partisan hack questions from Republicans. We expect that. Let me be very clear. The House of Representatives now has an obligation. A resolution of censure when the President of the United States indisputably intimidates and obstructs justice to prevent a witness from testifying is an order. So is a federal criminal investigation of Rudy Giuliani for witness tampering, calling out a man's father-in-law and wife in order to intimidate the witness is not fair game.
Those are serious charges. You're accusing both the president and his attorney of a crime. What exactly is Michael Cohen afraid of? Is it physical threats to his family, or that law enforcement, the Justice Department, will follow through on what you say is the direction of the president?
Fear is not something that can be analyzed, but there's certainly a basis for that fear. My question to Mr. Trump is the same question that Joseph Welch asked Joe McCarthy years ago. Have you no sense of decency, sir, that you attack a man's father-in-law from Ukraine, who escaped Ukraine from prosecution of Jews, came to the United States 25 years ago, had a problem with taxes and was on probation, and the President of the United States attacks him?
Those chairmen have echoed your criticism of President Trump, but they've also promised they will get testimony from Michael Cohen. If they subpoena Mr. Cohen, will he comply?
We have to decide that because of lots of legal issues, including his cooperation with the special counsel and other prosecutors. However, I will say this, make no mistake, Michael Cohen will speak. They will not thwart this truth coming out.
Lanny Davis, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
So you heard it right there. He says that Michael Cohen will speak, but the clock is kind of ticking. He's set to begin serving his sentence in early March 6th or 7th.
And so he would have to do that before serving the sentence. Right.
Okay.
All right. Great job, George. Now, Ginger, we've got the major storms that moved across the east, got a lot of rain and heavy winds, and I know that there's some serious concerns about flooding.
And you can see it now, Michael. Here in Times Square, the heavy rain has just begun, and it will be an all-day event, well beyond New York City. There are actually tornado warnings popping up in Florida this morning. Severe thunderstorm warnings, too. We're talking about 1 to 2 inch per hour rainfall rates. Look at the video out of Vermilion and East Lake, Ohio, where you had an ice jam cause flash flooding. And then in Birmingham, Alabama, where you have cars underwater because of all this rain. So that front moving east, we are going to be dealing with it not just the beginning of today, but really through the afternoon, all the way up to Portland, Maine. And we're going to finally get rid of it with a whole lot of cold behind tomorrow, Robin.
More cold coming. All right, Ginger, thank you. Overseas now to Venezuela, where the crisis is growing over a battle between President Maduro and the country's opposition leader. President Trump recognizing that opposition leader as the interim president. And now Maduro has ordered American diplomats to leave the country within 72 hours. Our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, has the latest. And Martha, the White House is defying that order to have diplomats leave that country.
They certainly are. The U.S. says Maduro does not have the authority to kick out our diplomats. So what you have this morning is, on one side, Maduro, who was sworn into his second term just a few weeks ago. On the other side, the 35-year-old opposition leader, Juan Guaido, calling that election rigged and being sworn in himself as president by the National Assembly. And caught in the middle of all this, those American diplomats and their families who will remain in the embassy despite massive demonstrations against Maduro, who is overseeing the economic downfall of this once prosperous country. Maduro is accusing the Trump administration of an American-led coup. This remains a very, very volatile situation. Robin?
It certainly does, Martha. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now, Robin, to a very personal revelation from Senator Joni Ernst, the Republican from Iowa, now calling herself a survivor of an abusive husband after her divorce papers were released to the public. ABC's Lindsay Davis here with the story. And Lindsay, the senator says this experience has made her more sensitive to these issues, and she shared more of her personal story overnight.
She certainly did. Good morning to you, George. In an interview with Bloomberg, she says she was sexually assaulted in college and didn't want to share it, but she says, quote, "In the era of #MeToo survivors, I always believe that every person is different and they will confront their demons when they're ready."
This morning, Senator Joni Ernst, the first female combat veteran elected to the U.S. Senate,
USA!
is speaking out, telling Bloomberg about a sexual assault she says she suffered while in college and addressing recent allegations about what she calls an abusive relationship with her estranged husband.
I was now forced out as a survivor, and I think every survivor should have the right to decide when it's their time to tell a story.
This revelation comes just days after divorce filings obtained by the Des Moines Register paint what she called a dark and troubling time in her marriage. The senator saying she was a victim of verbal and physical abuse. Ernst fighting back tears while speaking with reporters.
What I want to remind everybody is that I'm still the same person as I was a week ago. The only difference is that you know more about me now than you did a week ago.
Senator Ernst and her now ex-husband Gail both trade accusations of infidelity. In an affidavit, she claims once they argued and it became physical, and she fled the house with their daughter in the middle of the night. Ernst, long considered a rising star, says in court documents she interviewed to be Donald Trump's running mate. But Ernst says she turned the role down in part because her ex-husband, quote, hated any successes I had and would belittle me and get angry anytime I achieved a goal.
In the affidavit, her ex-husband did not address the allegations of abuse, but says he never had an affair and that he was the one who gave up his goals so that his then-wife could pursue her dreams. We did reach out to him, but he declined to comment.
Okay, Lindsay, thanks very much.
And George, we're going to turn now to the desperate search for a 3-year-old in North Carolina who went missing Tuesday while playing in his grandmother's backyard. Steve Osunsami is there in North Carolina with the very latest on the search. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning to you, Robin. We are in a very rainy eastern North Carolina where authorities are searching for 3-year-old Casey Hathaway. Volunteers from the U.S. Marines have joined in the search. The sheriff here says that this is a very rugged terrain. There are sinkholes and swamps out there where they're looking, so the Marines are coming in very handy in this search. Hundreds of neighbors have joined in the search, have helped the Marines and the sheriff's deputies as they comb through the woods. This 3-year-old went missing Tuesday afternoon after he disappeared from his grandmother's backyard. He was playing with 2 other children who were relatives, and the grandmother says he just disappeared after about 45 minutes and they never could find him. Robin.
The rain, of course, is not helping, but neither is the cold weather. That's a big concern for that young boy's safety.
It is. The first night that he went missing, temperatures were below freezing for several hours. That has authorities here very concerned. They tell us that they are also looking through bodies of water. They're telling us that this is a missing persons case. The family is cooperating, they tell us, but they also say they don't rule out that he was possibly kidnapped. Robin.
Rule out anything at this point. All right, Steve, thank you.
And we have news coming in right now from overseas. The European Human Rights Court has ordered Italy to pay Amanda Knox $20,000, ruling that Italy violated her rights of defense during the 2007 questioning over her roommate's murder by failing to provide Knox with a lawyer or a translator. Knox was originally convicted of the murder and spent nearly 4 years in prison before the conviction was overturned in 2015. Michael?
All right, George, we're going to turn now to something you don't see every day, and you have to see it to believe it. This is Colin Saunders. He's a 6-foot, 300-pound defensive lineman for Western Illinois. He became a star at the College Football All-Star Game with this move. Check it out. There we go. 6 foot, 300 pounds, and moves like a gymnast. Look at that.
And sticks the landing.
Sticks the landing. So I heard the Olympics are next.
Yeah,
giving up football, he's going to the Olympics.
Thank you, Michael. Let's get back to Ginger. It's going to get much colder in the Midwest.
Oh, is it ever? I love that stick of the landing, too, of that guy. All right, so Monroe County, Missouri, this was the backside of the storm. So even though you had a warm front in the first part, then it comes through and you slip and slide all over the road. That's what we're concerned about after this. Not just a cold blast. You have Arctic air coming in. It'll make it feel like 5 below, even colder by Friday morning. Some polar touch. Your local weather in 30 seconds. First, though, the mild cities, sponsored by Audible.
Una mesa para dos personas.
So again, using para, you're talking about something that is for someone.
Quisiera una mesa para la cena.
Pretty good. Could listening to Audible inspire you to start something new? Download Audible and listen for a change.
On weather alert today and alert for the possibility of seeing some flooding. Already that ground saturated, could get upwards an inch of rain. All of it in a very short time prior to noontime today. Meanwhile, also a wind advisory. High winds with this front coming through, especially 9, 10, 11 a.m. this morning. And look at the temperatures falling off to the mid 40s by 4 o'clock. Wind chills in the 30s and wind chills mainly in the 20s tomorrow with that high of 38. A colder weekend ahead with some sunshine.
Coming up, the director of the Oscar-nominated Bohemian Rhapsody, Bryan Singer, now responding to the explosive sexual misconduct allegation.
How can fitness designed for everyone be the right fit for you? It can't.